Welcome back to another episode of Ayanmo Radio. It's your girl Seven Soldier, and we back at it again. Y'all, it's been 3 years, bruh. To say I have not created a podcast episode in 3 years is absolutely insane. I want to say four, but I'm happy to be here. The name of this episode is called The Return. Why is it called The Return? Because it's speaking about the spiritual and the mental process of coming back to yourself, right? The process of returning, I think, is something that each of us has to do within our lives. Everybody, in some way, shape, or form, is healing. I've learned this from my mentor, and I felt this within my spirit, and she really affirmed that no matter who you are, you're healing from something. The way that life is, and just the reality of what it means to be a human being, you're constantly healing from something. And I think that as African descended people, we have a genetic predisposition, really, to spiritual gifts, a lot of us, but also to trauma because of the transatlantic slave trade. So I think that every black person, especially if you are across the diaspora, and even if you are on a continent, you are in some way, shape, or form healing from something. And if you're an African descended person in the Western world, you damn sure healing from something because we're constantly fighting that white man on our shoulder. We're constantly in like in a debate. We're in contingents really with colonization. Constantly. We're constantly in contingence with colonization. So you're healing. But what does that process of healing and what does that process of return really look like? You know? And I think that for me, the goal is embodiment. And I spoke about this briefly on my TikTok. Shout out to the people who are here from TikTok. Listen, if you are here from TikTok, you a real one because I think TikTok is where I found a trust and a confidence in myself as a creator again, especially when it came to me content creating online. Instagram, I don't like Instagram, but shout out to my Instagram followers who are here. Shout out to the people who are following me from college, from the creative scene, folk who are following me from YouTube. I appreciate the support no matter where you coming from. I see you. You are definitely loved. And we are reflections of each other. And I hope that during this episode and during my podcast, you are always reflecting on yourself, your spirit, who you are, and understanding, knowing, and loving who you're meant to be and seeing that that is valuable to the world that we live in. Okay? That's the whole point of Ayanmo Radio. If you didn't know what Ayanmo Radio was about, listen. Yamo is a Yoruba word for destiny. And each of us has a destiny. No human being on earth is without destiny. Okay? And I think that all of my listeners who are listening to this, who are seeing this, shout out to my folk who are on YouTube seeing this, you have a destiny, okay? And it is in your destiny that you are going to not only show up for yourself, but show up from everybody and show up for everybody who is around you. And it is in you reconciling and embodying all of who you were meant to be outside of your trauma that you are able to really see yourself and be who you are meant to be and to make the impact that you are meant to make. You know, I was talking to one of my professors and family, really, and she said that, we think that we're special. We all are stardust. And it's making me think about my best friend G. Shout out to Giselle Garcia. You hear me? She's with me in spirit. She's in my heart. That's my best friend. And one of her lyrics in her song called Exodus, she said, "Back to Stardust, Exodus." You hear me? And I think that we're all stardust. And that's what, my professor, Tasneem Siddiqui, that's what she said. She said, look, we're all stardust at the end of the day. None of us are special, But at the same time, you are special. And it's in you recognizing who you are and embodying yourself that you are able to actually be all that you are meant to be for us, for community. So it's important that you actualize yourself, you know? And you already know what's going on in the world. I don't even have to say what's happening in the world right now. If you are in the United States right now as we speak, we are in very crazy times. And I'm not surprised. If you listen to my episode, You Can't Stop the Inevitable, I prophesize what has been happening in the media already. And in the process of reconciling myself and understanding my gifts, I'm coming to understand the gift that I have of prophecy, you know? And it's crazy to think that something that I was feeling on my spirit and I was seeing 3 years ago is literally coming to fruition as we speak. And a lot of what we're seeing is a symptom of disembodiment. It's a symptom of the disembodiment of who you are as a human being, mind, body, and spirit, mind, body, and soul. When you are not connected to your spirit, when you are not connected to your emotions, right? When you are focusing solely on the idea of money and your whole life is dedicated to money and preserving having money, right? You are no longer a human anymore. One of the things that I used to research was, the idea of what it means to be human by a theorist, a writer, Sylvia Winter. And one of the things that she spoke about is the idea of what it means to be human. And she said, we're not even human anymore. She said, we are now Homo economicus. We're not even Homo sapiens. We're not even human. Because a lot of our lives are predicated on making money. And what we're seeing in politics and in the world is a disembodiment of the mind, body, and spirit, and a dedication and a loyalty to being a Homo economicus, a being that is solely focused on making money and self-preservation for the benefit of making money, right? Of oppressing others in order for you to be dominant. And it's unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. And this is why each of us reflecting on and understanding the importance of wholeness is important. To be whole is to be one with your emotions. It is to be one with your spirit. It's to be one with your ancestors. It's to be one with the Creator, right? With God, with who created you. You do not exist in silos. I don't know why that meme of Kamala Harris, child, you have whatever you feel about Kamala Harris is what you feel about Kamala Harris. But you didn't fall out of a coconut tree. What did she say? She said you exist in the context of everything that came before you. And even though, her politics may differ from mine, she ain't lying. She ain't lying. Niggas did not fall from a coconut tree. You are here based on the work, the embodiment, the survival of the ancestors that came before you. The struggles that you deal with may not just be your own. They may be a reflection of the ancestors that came before you. So there is a process of reconciliation that needs to happen. You have to reconcile the insecurities. You have to reconcile the negativity that you feed to yourself. You have to reconcile the trauma that you've experienced in your life. And these have been buzzwords. We have been in truly a revolution as a people. As a collective consciousness, we have been in a revolution, and I've been seeing it on TikTok, on Instagram. I have been seeing more people talk about healing and radicalizing themselves more than I have ever seen before. Jill Scott Heron said the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be watched on your telephones, and it will be on TikTok, and it might scroll on your Instagram page. That's where it's happening, because Assata Shakur said that the revolution it's a holistic process. It's of the mind. It's of the body. It's of the spirit. It's of how you show up, right? It's all of that. And I'm seeing it. And we are reflections of it. And it's because of our study, our embodiment, that we're able to experience this. Okay? And that's what I've been experiencing. And listen, again, if you're new, it's always going to be rooted in Africana studies perspective. You know, I went to school for Africana studies. That is my background. That is the tradition that I have been brought up in. And that is always the perspective that I'm coming from. With anything that I say, it's always from an Africana studies perspective. I'm always going to be citing, you know, sources, theories, readings from Africana artists, Africana theorists, historians. It's just who I am. Like, my people is my center. Africana people is my center. Europe is not my center. Africana people is my center. And Africana people will always be my center. I will always have a bias to the perspectives, the theories, and the ideas of Africana people, because for so long we have been told that they do not matter. And they are some of the most brilliant ideas that humanity has ever seen. And rarely is it studied. And that is what is at war right now. That is what the system is at war with. The administration is at war with, unfortunately. Ideas. And one of my professors would say the most traded thing in human history is ideas. It's not sugar. It's not gold. It's ideas. So let's catch up. I'm sipping some tea. If you're wondering what is in my cup. I am currently sipping a Chinese medicine tea from Lulu Studios. Shout out to Lulu Studios for sending me a sample of this tea. This is an amazing tea. It's an oil reducing tea, and it's meant to, you know, dry and moisten up phlegm if you have colds, if you want to improve your spirit, if you want to, you know, clear, you know, just moisture. You know, listen, a lot of the issues that we're seeing in our climate is going to affect the way that our bodies show up. So we have to have remedies, you know. So this tea has definitely helped that. I was coming down from a cold. I went to the Bahamas. If you haven't checked out my Bahamas vlog, you know, I went looking for Black history and Black people in the Bahamas, and I found some things. I did not think of Black people when I thought of the Bahamas, and I think that that's true of a lot of islands, you know, in the Caribbean, and it was beautiful. But I came to the Bahamas with a cold. And when I got back, you know, I received this tea, and it really did dry up that phlegm that I had. So shout out to this tea. We had winter melon, we had rose, we have so many different herbs. But let's get into it. Let's catch up. Where have I been? So since leaving the podcast 3 years ago, I took time to really focus on my mind and my spirit. I felt like, you know, for so long, I was so rooted in studying, you know, the theories and the ideas of our people, especially as it related to spirituality and seeing the richness of it all, right? That I don't think I took time to really understand the depth of the work that I needed to do as it related to my spirit, you know? And sometimes you have to go through a process where you are truly, truly, truly looking at yourself and assessing your wounds. And figuring out what is it that I need to work on and release in order for me to be my best self. Who am I outside of my wounds? And I think that my wounds started to show up too heavy for me, to where as though I don't think that I knew who I was outside of them. I had the knowledge, but I don't think I embodied all of who I was in order for me to even be able to be and do what I was meant to do, right? So since coming back to Ayanmo Radio 3 years later, I am an organizer with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. Shout out to the DC chapter of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. Shout out to Malcolm X Grassroots Movement in general. National organization, nationwide chapters. Shout out to the Philly chapter. Shout out to the Atlanta chapter. Shout out to the Chicago chapter. Shout out to Malcolm X grassroots movement. Okay, you can check it out. You can check out my work if you follow me on socials at Seven Soldier. But I became an organizer probably about 9 months ago, and it's been a beautiful process, and it made me really recognize and think deeper about what it means to actually show up in community, because people can talk about these things all day online. It's easy for you to talk about who you are, what you talk about online, what accolades you have, what degrees you have. But none of that really matters. And me and, one of my professors were talking about this. None of it matters in the grand scheme of things. She was saying this. She said, I don't care about what you do, you know? I don't actually. How are you showing up in a spirit of care, in a spirit of reciprocity? How are you showing up for your community? And becoming an organizer has really showed me that. It has really showed me the intimacy of care. Caring for your community, caring for yourself. Because if you don't care for yourself, you cannot care for community. Hence, it took me 3 years to reconcile so many things with myself and really root in my practice in order for me to be here. If it was not for hoodoo, I would not be here. Shout out to the practice of hoodoo. Hoodoo is not superstition, okay? Hoodoo is not a watered down tradition. Hoodoo is a psycho-spiritual practice that elevates your wellness. Hoodoo is why I'm here. Hoodoo is my solution. Hoodoo has been my solution. So outside of me becoming an organizer with the Malcolm X grassroots movement, I have also rooted myself deeper in my practice as a hoodoo practitioner. And I'm so grateful for it. I would not be here without my ancestors. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors. If it was not for their work, I would not be here. I feel gratitude to be able to not only heal myself, but also have the opportunity to be chosen to heal them. Heavy is the head that wears the crown always, but to be in connection to them and to heal them and to have them guide me in connection to the Creator is unmatched. I have not been this healthy in my whole life. And that's just me being real. That's another conversation for another episode. Drop them questions, drop them comments below so we can really get into it and talk about the things that you all want to know as it relates to hoodoo, as it relates to the practice. If you are on YouTube and if you haven't followed me or subscribed to me on YouTube, definitely do that. I have a video on the 5 ways that hoodoo can elevate your life. Definitely should tap into that. Okay, because those 5 ways are 5 ways that help elevate mine. Anything else? Feel free. Love to chat about it. Okay. So on top of that, I've also been getting into film, y'all. It's so crazy because when I graduated from Winston-Salem State University, folk who know me from Winston-Salem State University, I was active on campus, and mental health and, its connection to capitalism and specifically looking at the ways that it has affected our experience in relationship to the ways that art can help heal it was something that I really wanted to focus on. And I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm grateful for my experience at WSSU. I don't think I realized how important it was for me to go to that HBCU and to be rooted in that. Like Winston-Salem State University is different. Shout out to all the alumni from Winston-Salem State University. Like, if you went to WSSU, you know, we different. You feel me? Go Rams. Enter to learn, depart to serve. And no matter what contingencies I have with, some of the politics of HBCUs, I'm going to always recognize and realize that microcosm and of the world and that bubble really allowed me to see myself in a lot of ways, even though I went through a lot mentally and spiritually. But I think that after I graduated, I was like grappling with, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Like, do I want to go to film school? Do I want to go to grad school? And I was going to go to grad school at GSU, but I also was thinking about going to film school. And interestingly enough, listen, if something is for you, it is not going to pass you. I swear to you. It's going to come to you in a different way if it is meant for you. I'm telling you. If that nigga ain't for you, a nigga that's better for you is going to come. You get what I'm saying? if you want to go to film school and you it's not for you to go to film school right now, you're going to get into film another way. It's going to find you. And if you're not meant for something, guess what? It's not going to find you. It's going to pass you. And it's okay, because what is going to come to you. Do you understand? Okay. But I wanted to go to film school, but this past year I actually got into film, and I'm gonna tell you how I got into film. And it's rooted in this idea of community, because when I tell you all about me getting into hoodoo and me creating all these things, I did not do this in isolation. None of me becoming was in isolation. And that's what y'all got to understand when it comes to spirituality. You cannot grow on your spiritual journey by yourself. You cannot grow by yourself in your room on TikTok. You cannot grow by yourself in your room on Instagram. You have to be in community with people. These spiritual streets are cold if you by yourself, baby. None of these practices were even meant to be practiced in community. None of these practices were meant to be practiced in solitude. Let me correct myself. Sorry about that. I'm human. Clock it. None of African spiritual practices and traditions were meant to be practiced alone and in isolation. When you come to understand yourself, 9 times out of 10, if you're doing it the way that you're supposed to do it, baby, it's meant to be done in community. And me getting into film was a very community-oriented process. Not only by this time was I in mentorship and, within my coven, within community, I was also, just growing as a person. And I said, you know what? I want to support my friend. I supported my friend Aiden in her shoot. I was there. I was doing creative direction. Low-key assistant directing, not even realizing what I'm doing. An artist named Valo from DMV, he was like, I want you to come onto my set as a PA. I came onto his set as a PA. The director of that was my homie Nick, who is now my brother. Shout out to Nick. I'm literally, this is literally our studio. Listen, I'm all for turning a house, an apartment, wherever you at, into a studio. Do what you gotta do, baby. I'm literally here in his home now. This is our studio. This is our home. You feel me? Community shit. And sometimes all it takes is for one person to believe in you, bruh. Yes, you have to believe in yourself, but we don't come to actualize ourselves in silos either. Sometimes you may just think that you just messing around when it comes to certain things, you fucking around, and then you meet somebody who oh yeah, you actually are really like that when it comes to what you do. Come be a part of this project, do this. And then you realize, oh, I'm really good at this. But guess what? It took that one person to believe in you in order for you to even get to that point. Because you just being you, And then people see oh, you think being you is normal, but you actually really like that. And from there, when I tell you we build community, shout out to Jacques, shout out to Devin, shout out to Nick. That's the reason why we have visuals now, y'all. We have visuals. We have visuals because somebody believed in me. They seen me. We got to know each other and was like, I support you. Whatever you need, I got you. That is why I'm here. Aren't the visuals beautiful? You see the material? You know what I'm saying? So I'm full of gratitude. I'm full of so much freaking gratitude. But what made me come to this episode itself being named The Return and, even coming to these themes of reconciliation, a lot of the ideas came from a conversation that was had at Morgan State University. I'm an educator with the Youth of the Diaspora. Shout out to the African Diaspora Alliance. And I work with youth. I work with youth and I teach them Black Studies. And, we were celebrating the 32nd anniversary of a film called Sankofa. And this film is called Sankofa and it's by Haile Garima. And he was having a talk back. And one of the things that he said that I did not know, because I've seen his film. If you have not seen Sankofa by Haile Garima, go check it out. It's world renowned director, amazing OG. Okay, we were having a conversation at Morgan State University, and he said a lot of the themes that are reckoned with within this film are reconciliation, the ideas of return, because you have to reconcile some of those problems, the trauma within yourself, in order for you to become who you are. Reconcile the ways that Western ideas and philosophies and understandings have, tainted and interrupted and disrupted, these processes of becoming within you. If you see the film, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. And I didn't realize that. I never thought about that as a theme. So him clarifying that was like, oh wow, this really relates to the process that a lot of African descendant people go through as it relates to healing. Because it's like, it made me think about, oh wow, this film isn't just a film about reclaiming history. Because when you think about Sankofa, and for the folk who don't know, Sankofa is a Ghanaian philosophy that is about returning back to self and reclaiming the past in order to move forward. It's a philosophy, let's be clear. Philosophies are very layered. They're very much in the context of how we come to theorize and understand the world around us. Right? Life. Okay? These very large concepts. People think that these Adinkra symbols they're just cute. No. This is philosophy. This is why I'm telling you Africa is my center. Because for too long, we have not centered the knowledge of, where we come from. And this continent. It's a vast continent full of nothing but indigenous wisdom and knowledge. And we fall too short with studying it and embodying it. But needless to say, okay, it's this process of returning. And this is why I love film, because film is so layered and it makes you contend with a lot of these ideas that we kind of like put in the back of our brains. And it brings life to it, And I think that we're seeing now we need something real. We need something that is going to make us contend with the real in our realities that we're experiencing in our everyday lives. And that's a very mental, emotional, and spiritual process, whether you acknowledge it or not. Needless to say, he was speaking about reconciliation and speaking about the fact that every African person, every African descendant person, no matter where you are, you have to deal with and contend with the process of reconciliation. For your bloodline, you have to reconcile the history that you have been taught, the history that you do not know. You are responsible for what you do not know, right? All of the things. You have to reconcile with that, okay? And for me, it was just I was thinking, okay, this is just about fetching knowledge and bringing it back to the present of who you are and understanding who you are as an African person. It was much deeper than that. And I think that as an African spiritual practitioner, I realized how deep the film really was and how important and relevant it really was to our experience today. Because a lot of us are not embodying the work that we study. It's a lot of people who know a lot of things that aren't embodying what they talk about. Y'all got to be wary of that. It's people who are learning new things that don't embody what they're learning and what they're saying. And that's okay. It's not okay. But you have to have discernment. And you have to do the work of learning and then embodying. And sometimes that requires you to shut the hell up and listen and learn. Nobody wants to be a student anymore. And that's a lot of our issue. But that's why it took me 3 years to come back. Because I had to go into a place of solitude. But at the same time, be in community with others to see better. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it. But after that talk back, it made me understand that there's a genomic reconciliation that African descendant people really have to contend with. And if your practice does not contend with the genomic reconciliation that we all have to go through, you have to question it. Because how are you healing not only yourself, but those who came before you? How are you dealing with that? How are you becoming more whole and seeing yourself outside of your trauma and outside of the trauma that your ancestors experienced? And a lot of the times, and this is another conversation for another episode, because, we all have our own practice, our own religion. We all have what we believe in. But what you believe in also has to contend with your reality. And you have to have a practice. You have to have a practice. And for me, putting spirituality in the larger context of history and reconciling that your practice has to deal with the reality that you're facing is important. And I would not be here without my practice. And that practice is hoodoo. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful because it allowed me to reconcile with insecurity, with overthinking, you know what I'm saying, with confidence, with self-love. When people talk about hoodoo and voodoo and all of these different things, they talk about it in a very ignorant way, and they speak about it as if the practice itself is ignorant. And it's racism, really. But the reality is, it is indeed a science. It is indeed an indigenous technology that can help you shift and move between timelines. You're time traveling when you are a practitioner of African spiritual traditions. And to be an African traditional spiritualist is to be an Afrofuturist in practice, because nothing about the work that we do is for ourselves alone. It's for our ancestors. When you think of African spiritual tradition, you need to think of healing. You need to think of reconciliation, and you need to think of returning to self. Not, frivolous spells and all that other bullshit that you see. But I'm grateful to be back, y'all. I'm grateful to be back, and I want this space to be a space that you can be brave and that you can show up within who you are as a person, show up within your destiny, show up in the spirit of gratitude, show up in the spirit of learning. And I just want to be a living resource. Any of the downloads that I have about spirit, about life, about world events, it is not meant for me. Me learning and becoming who I am in community was meant to serve community. Who I am does not matter if it is not in community. And I also have a YouTube video, life moments, life lessons. I didn't realize I was healing until this, because it was in me returning to myself that I returned to community. You can't do it alone. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be returning to my community. So shout out to everybody watching. Shout out to everybody listening. Y'all are real ones. Shout out to the people who are listening on Spotify. You a real one, because before I had visuals, it was just me, my mic, in my room, in spirit. And if you're not watching me on YouTube, watch me on YouTube. I look good. That's part of the reason why I do. God gave me this space for a reason, because sometimes the reality is a lot of us are superficial. But I appreciate y'all for listening. I look forward to the next episode. And I look forward to growing with y'all. And again, drop those questions down below. Send me more topics below. I'm sending y'all so much love. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode.